Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. 14 after 8 o'clock. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media. Great to be in your company, and I do hope you'll stay with us till 10 o'clock. Do remember you can become a part of the conversation via any one of our social media platforms, and you can also call us on the WhatsApp line, which is 061 7660355. First up, we have Dr. Vusi Sibanda, Chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, to talk about the shenanigans of the EFF. We do know that they embarked on the Mall of Africa a few days ago in Midrand, using obviously saying that certain restaurants and businesses there were using discriminatory policies that favored foreigners, and keeping out local workers and impacting on the unemployment figures in South Africa. So why is the EFF once again using these tactics? We do know that in 2018, 2020, and 2021, they had targeted certain businesses, which I mentioned a little while ago. Calgan's Lounge, which is a medium-sized furniture manufacturer. Also, the Africa Services in Vereniging and the Gordon Road Super Spa in Johannesburg, not to undermine the fact that they're also trying to gate crash the Vodacom Journalism Awards, and created a big fuss because they were not given a platform to make a speech at that venue. So let's talk to Dr. Vusi Sibanda to weigh in on this issue. Why is Julius Malema using gangster-like tactics, intimidating small businesses? And truly, I'm wondering if it's going to serve his cause and his party at all. Dr. Vusi Sibanda, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, thank you, and good morning to the listeners. Well, look, obviously, I can't say, that this is the reason, why the EFF is doing that, from a position of knowledge from their side. But what I can say is the level of politicking in the country has really gone to the dogs. And when you look at EFF going into shops, this shows that the country does not have laws anymore. This has become a lawless state, because you must know that, we have got what we call the Department of Labor inspectors, to the extent that if anybody has a complaint about anything that is taking place in the workplace, that person will make a report to the Department of Labor, and the inspectors will be dispatched to those companies to investigate, those kinds, of complaints. Now, it's just like, when you also see, like what was happening in Elora Park, and Rosetta, where people go out there and start asking, migrants for IDs and so forth, including what EFF did. Those are specific functions that are left specifically for either the Department of Labor, the Department of Home Affairs, and the police. Now, once you see people doing that and they're not being taken to book, it means that the country is now on autopilot, because anyone can do as they please. And obviously, everyone is scapegoating, on migrants now as a reason for the failure of the economy. And because it has become, that ticket, that rhetoric that they think that it's going to answer the unemployment levels and the economic, downturn in the country. So everybody's busy, blaming it on migrants rather than looking in-house to see what is not being done, appropriately. Everyone has got a recourse if they feel that government is not doing all right, and that is vote out the government that does not listen to you, get a police force that listens to you, a government that will ensure that all its departments are functional. So what we see the EFF doing is one of those things that cannot be, sustained, and that is not sustainable in a democracy, a constitutional democracy like South Africa, where the rule of law is supposed to be paramount.
What Julius Malema and his followers are doing is truly very, very dangerous, is it not? Because this could start a spark as far as xenophobic violence is concerned.
Indeed, it actually has, because now what you can see happening is you will actually see we always had problems in the transport industry where truck drivers would stop, trucks and say they are searching for documentation. So now that Julius Malema has actually done this, and he's got a following, especially from, the younger generation and the disgruntled people that do not have jobs. So what we're going to see happening now is that every now and again, we're going to see people walking into, restaurants. We've actually seen it, some people refusing to be served by, a migrant, in a restaurant. So what we're going to see now is we're going to see more people storming into, business operations, disrupting business, which is, in any case, one of the worst things that can happen, because the economy is going to suffer more as a result of this disruption. Because we cannot again ever have a situation where people take the law into their own hands and they become a law unto themselves. So what is going to happen now is we're going to see individuals that are not employed, or that are criminals going into shops, looting shops, which already has started happening, by the way. Shops have been looted and are being looted. People's houses that are going to be attacked, and the excuse is going to be, you are foreigners, we want you out of the country. We know that there is a problem, with illegal immigration in South Africa, but it is not only South Africa that is the problem, of illegal immigration. That is why, this week we had a stowaway that was found in Amsterdam, trying to migrate to Amsterdam. We've had that in the UK. So migration is a problem, or is a phenomenon that has always happened for many, many centuries. People will move up and about. But to resort to such tactics that are so base, that smack, or basically, scorn in the face of the law and constitutionalism, where people can now begin to be vigilantes, walking in, attacking and fighting, migrants, irrespective of whether they are legal or illegal in the country, and without following due process. This is going to lead us to 2019 situation, and very soon in this year, we're going to see again migrants being burnt alive, and the government has not started to do anything, by the way.
Obviously, Julius Malema is using very, very shrewd tactics, because I should imagine he's following the younger generation, the disillusioned, unemployed, disenfranchised younger generation, and they're kind of looking to him to try and solve their problems. But this is not the way to go about it. But he's shrewd enough to know that if these are the tactics that he uses, he'll just garner more and more support of these younger youth who are a ticking time bomb in any event. We just need to look at July last year to see what happened. And you can see that at the drop of a hat, you can garner the energy of unemployed youth and criminals to do your bidding, as is Julius Malema doing right now.
Very true. Look, the disruption that took place last year is actually, might even be less than what is going to happen as a result, of this, migrant rhetoric, where basically, the restaurants, the entertainment, the restaurants and tourism industry has been one of those industries that have been hard hit during, the lockdown period. So you can imagine now, all of a sudden, when they want to start going to business, and then you've got political parties meddling and coming to interfere with business without following due process if there's any complaint. So our thinking is basically that Julius Malema and his party needs to be taken to court, especially for undermining the rule of law and actually making themselves, an authority unto themselves, because this is just unacceptable. And if it is not nipped in the bud, we will be reaping the results of that, and the results of that is going to be blood, and the economy is going to be the one that's also going to suffer a lot, and more unemployment is going to be created, because at the end of the day, these companies are going to close down, because some of these companies are going to be attacked and bent down, by these criminal elements, or those youngsters that are aggrieved because they are out of employment after finishing school, and they believe that whatever the leaders that are doing, it is the right thing to be done, and they are unaware that they are actually shooting themselves in the foot.
So, Dr. Sibanda, you say that these issues need to be taken to court. Sadly, the 2018, 2020, and 2021 incidents that I mentioned at the introduction of my program, it involved obviously Vodacom Click stores, the Gordon Road Super Spa in Johannesburg, even H&M, the clothing outlet. Initially, they did file charges, but the update on that is that H&M did not pursue charges. Vodacom senior executives, including their CEO Shamil Jusuf, went to EFF headquarters to apologize. So what is that saying when you have these big deals, big business honchos going to the EFF to apologize to them, to the atrocities that they carried out? That really leaves us, the general public, at a loss and leaves us totally open and vulnerable to future and further attacks, and really opening up the whole space of xenophobia.
I think one of the sweetest things that is happening, in the country now is that people are not bending towards aligning themselves with the rule of law and the law, but they're actually aligning themselves to fear and to a party that they feel that has got the power to disrupt and do things, because people, to a huge extent, are losing confidence in the judiciary and the justice system because they've not seen, for example, EFF being held to account, and they obviously have been saying a lot of things. And in this particular case, you can obviously see that they thought that, look, by going to apologize, they are going to maintain maybe a good subscriber base, because they think that maybe, EFF is going to, because it's mainly the party that's got a lot of youth, they're going to boycott, their product. So it is very unfortunate that at this particular stage, if we continue in this trajectory where, such things are happening, and, we've got people that are playing the political game, including these particular shops that are playing the political game and saying it's better, to align ourselves with the loud mouth and those that are making a lot of noise rather than to follow the law. Then it means that that's why I say, look, it looks like we're having a banana republic, a republic where we are not respecting the law, because the law should be respected by any other person, every other person, to the extent that if you look at the land grabs that have taken place across the country over a while, that have been instigated by EFF, and nothing really has happened. Those people still stay in those places where those sheikhs are, and the government has not been able to deal with that. So this is the reason why you see these big shops again, being skeptical, because they have seen, government, not doing anything about these unlawful land grabs. And so they also begin to think that, look, they cannot contain EFF, but they don't realize that, the government is worried maybe by not removing these people that have settled into these pieces of land, because they will lose, that voter, base, because the people will then retaliate because they needed land. So yes, I mean, there is a problem there, but I surely think that the best way is to have maybe NGOs and other organizations like ourselves, going to court, to get, a declaration that the actions, of political parties that go into, organizations and businesses, disrupting businesses, taking the law unto themselves, cannot be condoned, in a country, where rule of law is supposed to be paramount, and where we've got, a constitutional democracy.
Okay, Dr. Sibanda, as the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, what are you hearing from your members, from foreign nationals, and how are you, as a forum, moving forward to try and protect foreign-owned businesses and foreign jobs? We also know lots of foreigners have spaza shops all over the townships. They in the hairdressing trade, etc., etc. What is it that you do to try and reassure them that they will at some point, or by all means possible, be protected? Or is it a situation where foreigners are now just, wanting to leave South Africa because they're afraid of their health, well-being, and their lives?
That is very true. I mean, to a certain extent, we've got quite a good number of, migrants that have chosen to leave the country. I think you will remember that in about 2019, when we had that, sit out at the UNHCR and in Cape Town, because a lot of, those refugees, felt that, look, it's no longer safe to be in South Africa because they are not protected, by the laws and the authorities. However, we are in consultation, with our members, and one thing that is coming out very, very strong is that, look, litigation needs, to be done to the extent that we need the courts to make a decision about these budge-in, that are done by individuals, that are done by, obviously, political parties, going into shops, disrupting shops and telling, migrants that they must leave, despite the fact that these migrants that are law-abiding, that have got documentation, that are operating in shops. And even if they were not, documented, they would, if anybody saw that they were those migrants, they need to report them to the police rather than to become a law unto themselves. Because if a confrontation broke out of that, people would be injured and they don't have the necessary equipment and means, to protect the general public. So we will have, chaos, breaking out. So yes, at this particular stage, in order to try and protect, the migrant community and the sanity of, the lives of all our members, we are considering, litigating, especially against non-political parties like EFF and the New Patriotic Alliance that have started, harassing and closing, migrant shops and facilitating, the breakout of xenophobia.
Finally, we've just had someone send us a message saying that despite initially restaurants at the Mall of Africa in Midrand were using discriminatory policies that favored foreigners, Julius Malema has gone on record to say that this is not in fact so. His change of mind seems to have come about after meeting with the management of 3 restaurants that they targeted when they visited the Mall of Africa. And this message goes on to say that Malema justified his unsanctioned visits, saying they were being conducted in his capacity as a member of parliament. Can an MP actually do, carry out such acts?
Well, definitely not. I mean, look, I think if as an MP, they want to, bring about change in legislation, they must actually advocate for that, for changes in Parliament.
In
not
Parliament,
to
of course.
Yes, because what we see is this change of mind that comes, very late, is the damage is done. So that's why it needs to be handled. It needs to be stopped. We need action. So that the court can basically pronounce that action as unlawful and a criminal offense.
Okay, so in closing then, what are you urging NGOs and civil society to be doing in defense of the fact that Julius Malema and his followers are harassing small businesses? We can't guarantee that he won't, go out and do a similar thing in other areas. So what is your very strong message? How can people protect themselves? What ought they be doing?
I think we need people to obviously begin to, we know that the police in some cases is not really, able to deal with some of these cases that already stood. So what we are actually doing right now is we want to mobilize, the civic society and migrant communities and even, native South Africans, to actually litigate, to ensure that we have got a country that is, governed in terms of the law, not in terms of whims and thoughts of people, so that nobody should just, take the law into their hands and do things that are not, supposed to be done by them, and as a result, put lives in jeopardy and put the economy in jeopardy. So we are actually continuing with, engagement with the CFOs to facilitate a process, of litigating against these organizations and ensure that we can stand together, to stop, this kind of unlawful action.
Dr. Vusi Sibanda, Chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, thank you indeed. And his very strong message is litigate, litigate, litigate. Don't be intimidated by Julius Malema and his tactics by harassing small businesses and foreigners that are being employed by these businesses. The time is exactly 8:33, exactly News and Views with me, Julie Ali, right here on Salam Media.
Approximately 780